Look, have mercy on me.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of On The Bluff. I'm your host, Christian Fowler. Joining me this week as both producer and co-host is Kenny Stubblefield with Gabe out of town. Kenny, what's up?
Do you find yourself like extremely jealous of Gabe right now?
I do.
Because he told me last week where he was going. It was one of those
It's like, is it like Bahamas or something like that?
like fancy Caribbean islands where he's
it's like some island that I don't know if I can pronounce. I don't even remember the name. I think it started with the C, but that's totally going
I think
off.
Curacao.
Curacao. That sounds right.
Maybe, yeah.
Sounds
Let me ask you this. Right now, he's laying on the beach. Do you think that the locals in Curacao have ever seen a big beast like that laying on their beaches?
I'm sure there are large white men that frequent that area. So yeah, I think they've seen it before.
It's a big old hairy monster on that beach.
It is.
Man.
It is. I don't know if they've seen anybody quite like Gabe, but I bet they at least have a reference for him.
Gringo. Big gringo.
Yeah.
Muy guapo gringo.
Yeah. Guapo.
That's handsome, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He's a very handsome gentleman. What are you talking about?
Well, there you go. All right. Well, Kenny, it's been a while since you and I have recorded together. I never thought that would be the case, but it's been a minute since it's been just me and you.
I'm hearkening back to some days of old right now where me and you rocked a few podcasts together. So it's good to be back on with you, bro.
What about the weekend? You got it before we get into it, because we actually do have some Memphis news tonight. It's not it's still a little dry because of the time of year, but we got a little bit of news to talk about as well. Any highlights from the weekend that you want to hit before we jump into it?
I mean, not really. My weekends right now are dominated by little girl volleyball, and so it's still fun, and I love it. Like, I love going to the gym and watching my daughter play volleyball. My son hates it, so I have to my wife coaches the team, and so I have to babysit my son the entire time, which is kind of an interesting phrase, right? He's my son, so is it really technically babysitting? But like, I have to make sure there's two things that have to happen for him to be okay while he's at the gym. He has to have his headphones, and he has to have my hotspot on my phone on so he can watch his movies, because he is not a fan of the loud gym with the horns and the girls screaming and stuff like that. He is not a fan of it. It is like trying to negotiate peace between Ukraine and Russia to get him to come to these games and not freak out. So yeah, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say with him, it's probably more trying to entertain than babysit. As long as you get him set up, I'm sure he's totally fine.
Oh no, he doesn't need me at all. But getting him set up, right? Like, he's got to have his water, he's got to have his headphones, and he's got to have a hotspot so he can watch his movies, because it ain't happening either way, bro. If I don't have any of those three things, it's over. It's game set match for Silas. So. But no, that was my weekend, man. How was yours? I know you had Hey, listen. Last time we talked, you were not an uncle.
Nope.
Today, as we sit here today on Monday, April 22nd, you're an uncle.
Yep. A weekend, yeah. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Trying to help out as much as possible, whatever that means. Backing off or bringing food or just going and being a comedic relief for the situation, whatever it entails. And I feel like that's kind of what unclehood will look like for me. Extended is just doing those things in different ways as he grows up and gets older. So it's been really cool. We don't have a lot of babies in our family in general. Like, I have a couple of cousins that have started having kids, but as far as my immediate family, obviously I don't have any kids, and this was my sister's first. So it's just a really cool experience. That's been a lot of fun. And like I said, just kind of filling the gaps where needed. That's where I was last week. I was needed.
Definitely needed.
Yeah, I don't want to say desperately, because I'm not that big of a cog in the machine, but my presence was needed. So it's one of those things where you got to take care of that. So
1,000%.
It's been cool.
I was happy you were able to be there with them. I think what I tell people all the time about, I was obviously an uncle before I was a father. And being a father is the greatest thing. It is awesome. It is so great. And I'm excited for you one day to be able to have some little bouncing baby Christians running around. But let me tell you, bro, the beautiful thing about being an uncle is
You're
that
not a parent.
exactly.
You get to be fun with very little to no discipline.
As soon as the literal shit hits the fan, you get to hand the baby back and be like, I'm out. I'll see y'all later.
I don't have the same responsibility.
They're not there, right?
Yeah, but it's been a lot of fun. It's really cool, and to see my parents become grandparents for the first time, and my grandparents become great grandparents, and just all the way down the lineage, like seeing everybody and their reaction to it, and it's just exciting. Like it's really cool. I know some people try to brush it off, like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Everybody does it, but to me, to my family, very big deal, very cool. And we've certainly enjoyed this first week plus. This weekend though, what did I do this weekend? Friday night, dude. I swear they all run together. I don't even know. I don't know what I did. I couldn't tell you what I did Friday night right now.
Nothing crazy important to where it's sticking out, where you just had a good weekend with family and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, Saturday was cool. We went to 201 Poplar and we made 900 whole wings and fries. I think we fed around 100 people. I think it was like 70 prisoners, guards, staff, stuff like that. So we fed them,
Wow.
And that was a really cool experience because for those that don't know, and not to get too in the weeds on this, like my family does a lot of volunteer work. We do a lot of stuff, with our church, and then separately just on, trying to help out and fill areas of need. So that was one of those things. And in those moments, you don't know, like, okay, are a lot of people going to show? We're going to have a lot of volunteers, or is it going to be light? And we're going to be here forever. But we had a really, really good turnout, and I think within 2 hours we had cooked 900 wings, no telling how many pounds of fries, probably like 60, 70 pounds of fries. And I think we did it all in an hour and 45 minutes. Everything was done and cooked, and the guys were being fed. So really cool to be able to do that and be a part, same thing, just a small piece, a small part of that. Shout out to my parents on that.
So
they do a lot of putting that together, and also one of their friends is very involved in that too. So really cool.
So you were the same wings that won the best tasting wings, the championship wings. You took down to 201. You said 201 Poplar, and I'm like, does he realize that's the jail, right? Like that's the Memphis jail. You were there feeding prisoners. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. That sounds good.
Really, really cool. It's always a lot of fun to be able to do those things and be a part of those things. Like I said, small piece, small part of that. And then Saturday night, I went with Anna Ruth and her sister and her mom, and they got tattoos. It was her mom and sister's first, and I think it's her third. So just fun.
Did you get one? Did you get one with them?
No, I didn't. I've got enough, and I didn't really have anything planned to get, so I was just a spectator.
Thought you were gonna start doing more of the leg sleeve that you've got going on.
I don't have much room. I just have my knee open, and I'm the guy that's done all my tattoos is like a year and a couple. I think we looked while we were there, and he's booked out until February of 25. And so it's just like I'm not really gonna get it by anybody else. I have a lot of work done on me, and he's done literally every single one I have.
Yeah.
So I'm not really pushing to get one. After you get big ones, you're like, I don't want to do that anymore. After you do the 7-8 hour sits, it's like I'm okay. I'm okay. I can only do these every once in a while.
So the juice hasn't hit you, like the desire to get another one. You haven't been like there is something that you want though, right? Like you want to do something else.
I mean, I don't have anything specifically that I know of. I've got some small ones that I know like eventually I'll get, but I'm not in a hurry to. But it's been 3 years since I've gotten one, since I got like the whole bottom half of my leg done, and it being in there kind of made me itch to get one, but I'm not really an impulsive person, as you well know. And so I wasn't just going to like spark one and be like, all right, yeah, here we go. We're here. Let me get something. Not really my style. So that was Saturday. I wish I can't remember for the life of me what I did Friday night. I'm sure it was something. I always got something going on. I hope it wasn't something important because then
Yeah.
I'm totally missing it. But
right now, she's trying to tell me that it was y'all's anniversary date Friday night.
no,
That's what you
no,
missed.
I got it. I
No?
got it. We just went 8. We just went
Oh.
ate a steak. That was it.
There you go.
I recall it now.
Are you sure it wasn't something special? Because I'm hearing.
Yeah, no,
I'm hearing different.
No,
it
wasn't.
First,
so the tattoo night was originally planned for Friday. It didn't happen, and so me and her just went and got dinner, and that was it.
That's funny. That's funny. Well, dude, yeah, it was a good weekend though. But I am absolutely ready to get into we got some actually big stuff to talk about with the Tigers right now. So with the basketball team in particular. So why don't you set it up for us? Kind of give us a little rundown of what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, let's get into it. So really probably an hour, maybe an hour and a half before we jumped on here to record.
Thank you, Tyrese Hunter, man. Thank you for dropping that about an hour before. I appreciate that.
Yeah, because Kenny and I talked earlier this afternoon. It was like, what are we going to talk about? You know, like eventually we're going to get to football, and we've got an idea that we're going to talk about, kind of stemming from the spring game leading into the summer and the season. But basketball was like, okay, I guess we just talk about some of these targets and what we expect. But Tyrese Hunter, Texas transfer, committed. This backcourt is really starting to take shape now. Over the last several weeks, Memphis has got PJ Haggerty from Tulsa, Colby Rogers from Wichita State, and now Tyrese Hunter from Texas. And you start off. I'm gonna give you the floor first on Tyrese Hunter, and then this backcourt rotation. Take it away and kind of give your thoughts overall on Tyrese, and then what Memphis currently has in the backcourt.
It is interesting to me. Like he's more than likely gonna be kind of form a backcourt with PJ Haggerty, where you've got two guys in the backcourt who can handle the ball, who can be lead guards if they need to be. Tyrese Hunter can be a lead guard. In a lot of ways, I think he could be used off ball as well. But you've got a tandem, I think, with PJ Haggerty and Tyrese Hunter that is going to be a playmaking, a drive and dish, a good shooting, especially with Tyrese Hunter added to the equation. A decent shooter. You know, we've talked about Tyrese Hunter. We talked about shooting in the past in college basketball, kind of that litmus test of whether somebody is an effective 3-point shooter is around that 35%. And I would say as a career, he's been around that area. Obviously his freshman year, he was at 28%, which is to be expected, man. The speed of the game, it is what it is. He's playing for Iowa State, immediately went into a big conference, played against really good opponents. And the speed of the game probably was a little bit too much for him in that freshman year. But you look at the last 2 years at Texas, he's shot 33%. And so a pretty effective shooter, I think, from the wing. And he is smaller, though. It's going to be interesting to see where
that was kind of I kind of wanted you to get on that and kind of your thoughts on the size of this backcourt or lack thereof, because you look at Tyrese Hunter, he's 6 foot. PJ Haggerty is 6'3". Colby Rogers 6'4".
6'4".
So it's not like you've got a bunch of 5'11" guys running around back there, but you don't have any big guards as of right now.
Right. Which I don't think is that big of a. I mean, I don't
either.
I'm not that. It's college basketball. I'm not really that concerned about it. We're not talking about guys who are bad at defense. We're talking about guys who are willing to defend.
Correct.
Just might be a little bit lacking in size. I mean, a perfect example of that, I think, with Penny Hardaway's schemes is how he was able to utilize Tyler Harris in the backcourt.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and Tyler is and was back then much smaller than anybody that Memphis has got in the transfer portal in the backcourt this year. And that was one of the big concerns we had about Tyler coming back was, okay, we know what he does on the offensive side of the ball, but will he be exposed on the defensive side of the ball? And there was only a handful of times in the 2 years that he played for Memphis where I would say he was exposed because he was put into the post, right?
Yeah.
But his ability, his willingness to engage on the defensive end of the floor, especially pressuring up on the ball, caused him to be an effective defender. Even if he didn't lock guys down, he added resistance, right? And last year, I know his name is not highly thought of right now in Memphis. But Javon Quinterly one time told me last year, he said, my main goal as a defender and what I look for in other guards when I'm matching up with them is how much resistance are they going to give me on the floor? Are they going to make me have to do something different than what I want to do?
Yeah.
And I feel like you got guys who have played. You got a guy in PJ Haggerty who has the size to do that. And you've got a guy in Tyrese Hunter who has played in a league for the last 3 seasons where you have to do that or you get run off the floor.
Correct.
And so I think you're talking about defensive minded individuals, no matter what their size is, guys who are willing to engage, guys who are willing to defend.
Yeah. And I think another big takeaway from me when you look at Tyrese Hunter and Colby Rogers, they're both guys that have 3 years of 30-plus minutes per game.
Dude, I was going to bring that up too. That is a huge deal to me.
Yeah.
That they 3 years of high usage out of them by far. Yeah.
And then you look at Tyrese Hunter, he's because we've been talking about, and I'm going to go more into this now, PJ Haggerty, and how do you put complementary pieces around him, not guys that are necessarily going to steal the show and try to be 20-point per game scorers, but guys that can complement him. And I think Tyrese Hunter fits that perfectly. He's been, a 10 to 12 point per game scorer throughout his collegiate career. He has really solid assist numbers, which shows you right there that he's not a selfish player. He's willing to move the ball.
Right.
He's a decent but not great shooter, which can take a little bit of the pressure off. So I think what we're seeing with Colby Rogers, with Tyrese Hunter, is just more depth, might not be the right word, but just more complementary pieces to PJ Haggerty. They're not guys that are going to take 10, 15 shots a game. These are guys that can take a back seat, get him the ball, but also offer other scoring options in whatever rotation they're put out there. Because you have 3 guys that can score, you have 3 guys that can pass, you have 3 guys that are willing to play defense, 3 guys that have played heavy minutes. Colby Rogers and Tyrese Hunter, really heavy minutes over the last 3 years. PJ Haggerty played nearly 34 minutes per game last year at Tulsa. So even though he's, redshirt sophomore, he is a guy that played a lot of basketball last year. So overall, you're getting the experience, which I think is important. We talked about that last year. Regardless of how that class panned out, there was experience in it. But now we're seeing pieces fit together better, I believe, than we saw last year. And Gabe and I, and you also have talked about this over the last several weeks. It's not necessarily all the shiny toys. It's all the pieces that fit the best into the system. And I think we're seeing that specifically with the backcourt, what Penny and the staff are building right now. I think those are 3 really, really good players that can be very effective in this conference. 2 of them have shown it in this conference, and then Tyrese Hunter has shown it in one of the best conferences in college basketball over a 3-year stint with 2 different schools. So I love the addition of him. These guys are really pretty interchangeable, especially PJ Haggerty and Tyrese Hunter between the 1 and the 2. We'll see, I guess, if size dictates that, or if, primary ball handler, whatever. We'll see what dictates that as the guy that's actually bringing the ball up the floor. But I think what you're doing, and I think this is even more important, is you're becoming interchangeable, which we've seen this at times in Penny's tenure, where it didn't matter who brought the ball up the floor because they were just as effective with the ball in their hand, without the ball in their hand. And I think you've got a good dose of that with Tyrese Hunter, PJ Haggerty, and Colby Rogers. So I'm a huge fan. I know you're a big fan also. It might not be the biggest names out there as far as just strictly name value, but of effective talent that fits what this staff wants to do. I think we're seeing a lot of that. And with that being said, I kind of want to transition a little bit here to the front court, because we're seeing the back court fill out. The front court, we know Dane Danger is there. We know Nick Jourdain is there. And I think we both agree that that's a solid start, but there still needs to be more added to that unit. A couple names that have come up. Jaden Quaintance is a 5-star center. High school, he just got out of his NLI. It's so difficult now between NIL and NLI. But just got out of his NLI from Kentucky. Visited Louisville last week. Also plans on visiting Memphis and Arkansas at some point. That would obviously be a welcome addition. And then also Memphis has reached out to former Memphis Tiger, former Oklahoma State Cowboy, and former Ole Miss Rebel now, and Moussa Cisse, who, as just mentioned, spent time here coming out of high school. So with some of the targets that are out there, Kenny, what do you want to see from this front court? And I guess you don't even have to go specific player, but you can now that we know more targets. What's the best way to construct this front court to complement what has already been built in the back court?
I know it's going to be very difficult. The reaction to the reporting by Hitman Hoops that Memphis had interest and had reached out to Moussa Cisse. I think Moussa entered the transfer portal last week, and you started to kind of hear some rumblings that Memphis was interested in him. There's been a lot of reaction, wouldn't you say, Christian? Like a lot of reaction about, oh my gosh, like, why would you go get Moussa Cisse? Like, why? We know what he did in the summer. Have you ever had a chance to really look back at his numbers and what he did on the court for the Tigers during his 1 year here?
Yeah, no, I mean, I've definitely looked at it, and I would say I'm a little bit more on the fence. Like, I'm not a hard yes, I think it's the best fit, and I'm not a hard no that it doesn't make sense.
Gotcha.
Moussa's obviously played 4 years collegiately now. He's never been a volume minutes guy because of his weaknesses. You look back at his freshman year, 6 points, 6 rebounds, block and a half. Arguably his best year, maybe his 1 year or his year at Oklahoma State.
His sophomore year at Oklahoma State was probably his best college year. He won Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, and I think you've got to look at him a little bit in a vacuum. I don't think you can look at the totality of what he is as a player and say yes or no. Yeah. I think you have to look at how can he impact the game, because offensively he's just not going to make a big impact. He's still, after all this time, not extremely skilled. Right. As I mentioned a minute ago, he's not a high volume minutes guy, but what he does bring is the ability to get up and down the floor, which we know is important in this system. We've seen him be at least somewhat effective, maybe not an elite level of effectiveness, but at least somewhat effective in this system. He can get up and down the floor, and he can be a rim protector, and that's what he is. So do I think if you get Moussa Cisse in the fold, do I think he's a major needle mover? No. But do I think he can serve a role on this team in a solid way? Yeah, I do, because I know he can move. I know he can get up and down the floor, and I know he can block shots. And those things you can't really question. And he can rebound as well.
I feel like this is we remember, because we were covering the team back then, but we remember when Moussa was being recruited out of high school, out of Lausanne Prep Academy. It was a 5-star top. I can't even. Do you remember his rankings on 247? He was like top 10 center in his class that year, right? Like, I mean, he was way up there, top 5 maybe. I mean, he was highly sought after.
Yeah, he was the number 2 center in the country, number 12 overall player.
I mean, unbelievable. Like that, the expectations placed on him. And me and you had seen him quite a few times.
Yeah.
And I think we were kind of pumping the brakes a little bit when Moussa did end up committing to Memphis, of like, hey, listen, you have to understand what he is as a basketball player right now. He is a very raw, I would say in a lot of ways, unskilled, but highly effective in what he does well. He's highly effective at that.
Yes.
And so knowing as he's coming into this year, like, you need him to be a defensive stopper. You don't need him to be a threat on the offensive end of the floor. But yet he was so highly rated and so highly sought after that I think there was an expectation kind of placed on him that he was going to be this certain kind of a guy, right? Yeah. And then another thing I think that kind of plays a role in the way that people are viewing this idea of Moussa coming back to Memphis is, let's not forget, that was like the year that COVID had basically shut this country down to the point where we weren't able to go cover the games the way that we used to. We weren't able to. Everybody was watching them on TV, like everybody else was. We weren't able to really see kind of the practices, on what was going on behind the scenes and how things were going with Moussa, to the point where I feel like he was a super under covered big that Memphis has had. Because if you think about under Penny Hardaway's tenure, think about the bigs that he's had at Memphis. He's had James Wiseman for, albeit a short amount of time. He had James Wiseman. He had Precious Achiuwa that same year. Then the next year was it? Yeah, it was Moussa and DeAndre he brought in.
Yeah. And then Jalen Duren.
Then it was Jalen Duren with DeAndre. And then it was Jordan Brown this past year. It was Nick Jourdain. And so these are the guys that he's had. He has had extremely talented big men, guys that are playing professionally, whether it be in the NBA or overseas. He's had really good guys on his roster that make up his front court. And I think Moussa gets looked at in a kind of an unfair way because we weren't able to cover him the way that we wanted to. And because I think that I think that he was just kind of caught up in this idea that we need you to be that number 2 center in the entire country coming out. This is our expectation for you. Well, we were preaching the whole time, it ain't going to be that way. It's not going to be that way.
Yeah.
But what we saw from Moussa then is exactly what we need from him now. He's just got 4 more years of experience under his belt. And so I think that we can sit here as media, as pundits, the Tiger fans can sit there and they can, as fans, like react emotionally to the situation. But I would honestly say, man, like reconsider your decision on how you feel about Moussa Cisse coming back to Memphis, because I think he is a perfect fit for what Penny Hardaway needs, because he doesn't need the ball, and Penny Hardaway's offense runs better when his bigs don't need the ball. Yeah. But everything else he does well, he's very effective at, and it fills a massive need for this Tiger program. And let's not forget, he's also going to be off the bench. Like he's not going to be a starter for this team. He's not going to get starters minutes. That role is going to Dane Danger. Like that's who that's going to be. And so I think as a backup 5 to Dane, I think it's a perfect fit. Yeah. In all honesty.
Yeah, I think it works mainly because of what you just said, is that he's not commanding the ball. He's going to do what he's effective at regardless of who's on the floor with him or how many minutes he's playing. So it makes sense. I know it's not the most exciting thing. I know it's, like I said, I don't think it's a huge needle mover. I think it's an effective piece, but I don't think it makes this team much better, and I don't think they're much worse without him. So if they do get him, I think it's a solid addition, but it's not anything insane. It doesn't take Memphis from, a top 50 team to a top 20 team, and nobody's saying that, nobody's claiming that, but it builds a stronger core with the team that they just don't have, there's not many names on this roster at the moment, but I think we do see it taking shape now. I think when I speak for both of us, when I say I think they're doing a really, really effective job at building this roster right now. I think now you really got to start focusing on wings and front court. And if you can get some of those guys on board, whether it's, Aaron Scott or TJ Bamba from Villanova or Jaden Quaintance as a, 5-star top 15 level player coming in at 16 years old. If it's Moussa Cisse, wherever it is, like they know the areas that need attention at the time. And I think we're seeing it slowly but surely be built. Do you have any more basketball thoughts? I do want to talk about football here for a second. Spring obviously always gets us excited about football, but any closing thoughts on basketball before we move on?
I wanted to ask you, me and you haven't had a chance to talk about this, but what are your thoughts on, it was shown interest that TJ Bamba, I think, put out a tweet saying that Memphis was in his top 6. And I think that kind of surprised everybody. Obviously, Memphis fans are familiar with TJ Bamba based off of what he did to Memphis last year while at Villanova. That was probably that first half against Villanova was probably the first time in the year that we were like, okay, something like this isn't what we thought it was going to be, right? Yeah. Like, even though they ended up running off like 10 straight wins after that,
It shows some chinks in the armor.
Yeah, but even in that second half, they came back and outplayed Villanova, but they were down like 41-19, I think, at half or something. Like, it was crazy numbers. But TJ Bamba was a super effective guy for Villanova. What are your thoughts on TJ? And is he somebody that obviously is showing the interest in Memphis? Memphis is showing interest in him. Is he somebody that kind of immediately piques your interest?
Yeah, absolutely. Another guy that's played a lot of basketball, especially over the last 2 years. He's put in a lot of minutes. I think he was a 16-point per game scorer 2 years ago, around the 10.5 mark this year. So another guy that's not necessarily commanding a ton of shots, but can be effective when needed. He's very athletic. He's not huge, so he's kind of like a tweener. Is he a two guard? Is he a three? Where do you play him? Depending on rotations and lineups and depth and players that you have at that position. But overall, I think we get way too caught up, and I can be victim of this sometimes too, at you got to fill this position, that position, that position. But really, you just get really talented players and you put them where they fall within the system and within the players that you have.
Yeah.
And I think that even though you've got three guards already, I think that's somebody that if he wants to come, if he wants to join this class, you don't turn that away at all, because he's effective on both ends of the floor. Another guy that knows his role. He's a solid shooter. I think he's around the 37% from 3-point line for his career. Decent rebounder. He's overall solid. So kind of the same thing. Like, he's not going to take this team from middle of the pack to top, but he's just the core pieces that you need to make a roster and to build around superstars that are already there. And a lot of experience, high-level experience with, just a great program in Villanova historically. So another one that I definitely wouldn't be opposed to.
You know who he reminds me of a little bit?
Yeah.
You know who? So, like, low-key, like, one of my, like, favorite teams to pay attention to watch, mainly because of their head coach, is the Tulane Green Wave with Ron Hunter. I love Ron Hunter. I think he's a fantastic coach, but they've had a player on the team that has given Memphis hell over the last couple of years. It's a guy named Sion James.
Yeah.
And
he does. He has a similar build.
And I think it's more so like, I know we got to hear his story about a gazillion times about what he does in the community and things like that. And all that's great. It tells me a little bit more about kind of who he is as an individual. And I don't know if TJ Bamba is that way off the court, but I love watching Sion James play, even if he's not scoring a bunch, if he's the most athletic, the most skilled, gifted kind of player.
He's just got like that physical downhill style.
Like, he can get dirty, he can fight, he can bang.
He plays basketball like a running back.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's TJ Bamba to me. I want a guy like that on our team. Like, I want a guy like that on the Memphis Tiger team, somebody who plays basketball like a running back.
Yeah.
And I think when I saw that come across the waiver, the wire, that TJ Bamba was showing interest in Memphis, I was like, could this be Memphis's version of Sion James? Because I like him. I like his game. I like the way he plays. I like his persona on the court, his demeanor, the way that you can tell that he leads this team, the Tulane Green Wave. I hope that that's the kind of player that they're getting in TJ Bamba.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Speaking of running backs, let's transition to football. The spring game was this weekend, and just kind of piggybacking off of that a little bit, I want to talk about positions that we feel the most comfortable with going into the spring, going into the summer, and then ultimately into the fall. And I'll start, and hopefully I don't take your thunder. And if you want to backpack on the same thing, then go for it. You don't have to pick a different position. But to me, it's hard not to go to the running back position here. You look at what they have, especially in the 1-2 punch that I think they possess, that I think will be the best in the conference this year, between Mario Anderson and Sutton Smith. I'll start with Mario Anderson, 850-plus yards at South Carolina last year, 4 total touchdowns, kind of in a rotational role. It's not like he was a workhorse, bell cow, every down back, but he was extremely effective when he was called on, averaged nearly 5 yards per carry. Some people will go, whatever at that 5 yards per carry because college, the numbers are typically higher. We're talking about the SEC on a South Carolina team that had a terrible offensive line last year. They were just turnstiles everywhere on the offensive line, especially at the tackle positions. So he was extremely effective in the toughest conference in college football with one of the worst lines in that conference. And just physically, what he brings with his size, with I don't know, deceptive speed is right, but he can move for how big he is. He is like the perfect thunder back. And then with Sutton Smith, I think Sutton is the perfect lightning back. And we haven't seen, to me, enough from him over the last couple of years. And I'm not saying because of his ability. I just think, especially last year when I believe he was ready to contribute at a high level, I think Blake Watson offered a very similar skill set.
Right.
I think that held him. I think that held him back a lot. You look at Mario Anderson, he's a between the tackles guy. He's a solid receiver, but Sutton's a better receiver. He's better in space. So with these two guys, I think obviously Mario, your first and second down back, Sutton as your third down back. You can also mix him in on passing downs in the slot if you wanted to. He's that effective as a receiver and a route runner. I love what they bring. And then you got Brandon Thomas as well, who we know was a very effective goal line back last year. So
the last 2 years, really.
The last few years. I mean, he obviously had his breakout. I think it's been 3 years ago now. Dealt with injuries and some other stuff, but has still been effective in the role that he's been asked to play. So overall, it's hard not to be extremely confident in that group because I think they complement each other so well. I think they have different skill sets and styles that will allow them to, like I said at the top, I think they'll be the best running back duo trio, just stable in the conference.
I want to ask you this. I know there's been some discussion even in the Discord about Mario Anderson and Blake Watson. And I wanted to get your opinion on this. Blake was like, you saw a lot of Blake last year, seen what he'd done even at the combine not at the combine, but at the pro day. I mean, he's rising up the draft boards. Like people are starting to take notice of him, that he could be a guy who's drafted, day 3. Drafted this year, day 3, that kind of a running back. Memphis fans have been asking a lot of questions about, because we don't know a lot about Mario other than what we've seen from South Carolina tape. Who's going to be better for the Tigers? Will it be Blake or will it be Mario? And I don't want to necessarily say future casting, like who's going to have a better season, but in terms of tiers of running backs, there's a different tier here, right? Like we're talking about two kind of different tiers of running backs between Blake Watson and Mario Anderson, right?
It's tough. I mean, I think as an athlete, Blake Watson excels Mario Anderson. I mean, you saw what he did at the pro day. I think he was top 5 or top 7 in 40 broad jump and vertical.
Which isn't that wild though, because that's what we had heard. Blake Watson doesn't have the speed to play in the NFL, and yet he ran a really, really good time in the 40.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah, and I think honestly, to me, it's kind of insane that he didn't even get a combine invite because we've been hearing about him since before the combine even took place. So I was kind of surprised by that, but still he built his stock up even more at the pro day. I think he was at the Shrine Bowl as well and turned a lot of heads there.
Yeah.
But I don't want to say the caliber is different because I think really believe that Blake can go to the NFL and have a successful career and a successful role. But from pedigree coming into, let's base it on that because that's all we really have. And Mario Anderson was a D2 guy a couple years ago, so you can't cut the corners too much on it. But he was a guy that was able to get in the rotation year 1 at South Carolina and be very effective. And even though Blake Watson had an effective collegiate career before coming to Memphis, he was at Old Dominion. So I think maybe your caliber is a little bit different coming into Memphis, even though I think most of us that knew what Blake Watson was capable of weren't surprised by this.
We're not surprised by what he did, yeah.
But Mario Anderson just has a build that this conference isn't used to seeing. You know, like he's not made to run over AAC linebackers. He's built to run over SEC linebackers. And so I think they're both very good players. I think they both, obviously what Blake did here, I think Mario has a chance to do very similar numbers-wise and just overall effectiveness-wise. So I don't think there's like this huge gap because I think a lot of people may forget that Mario was a D2 guy just 2 years ago before he came to South Carolina. So pedigree is a little bit different just because of where they're coming from transferring to Memphis. I mean, if you pull back the layers 2 years ago and Mario Anderson was coming to Memphis from D2, then it wouldn't really be that much different.
It wouldn't have changed anything.
Right. But he was able to, do enough there to go to South Carolina. And I know some people may scratch their head over the decision to come to Memphis, but to me, it's the best decision he could have made because he plays in a conference where he's probably going to dominate, and he's on arguably the best team in the conference going into this year with the best situation, with plenty of opportunity for carries, with plenty of opportunity to show that he's capable to play at the next level at a school that has put 5-6 running backs in the NFL over the last 4 or 5 years.
And let's be frank about it, as crazy as it sounds, potentially even a more opportunity to play postseason ball than at South Carolina, right?
Yeah,
like
I mean,
Memphis I would say Memphis has a better chance to play postseason ball than South Carolina does.
Yeah, I mean, South Carolina is moving on from Spencer Rattler, Xavier Legette. Like they're losing some of their best players, and they weren't very good last year. Right. So yeah, absolutely. I think he has more opportunity to put more on film at Memphis.
Yeah. So obviously running back's a huge deal. Mario Anderson and Sutton Smith. I'm excited, man, especially with Sutton. Like I want to see him shine, but I do think you're right. Like I think he kind of got lost in the Blake was a better running back. This is Blake's 5th year in college football. At this point, you just kind of trust the guy and what he did, and they just kind of did the same things, to be honest with you, in a lot of ways. Yeah. So I'm really interested to see what Sutton Smith does this year, being kind of the lightning to the thunder, if you will. But I think obviously the number one answer for me is quarterback. I'm the most comfortable with the quarterback position. We got a guy who's 21 years old, who's about to play his 4th year of college football for the same coach, under mostly the same system. I know but even in that case, he's been under Cramsey now for this will be Cramsey's his 3rd year under Cramsey. So it's like this. I think there's a level of confidence that I have. And what have we always said, man? In college football, the majority of the time, the team with the best quarterback is going to win the game. Yeah. And I don't see many games this year, especially in conference, where Seth's not going to be the best quarterback on the field. So I'm most comfortable with Seth Hennigan as the quarterback.
I think that is very fair. And speaking,
I know that's the easy way out. I'm not a football guy, so I had to go with Seth.
Yeah, no, it's fair. It's very fair. All right. Well, once again, I think I did this 2 weeks ago, but I didn't get very much juice to do a creative outro.
I didn't give you the juice, man. Oh,
my bad. I don't think I really had any of it other than we talked about thunder and lightning, and I guess you and I can be thunder and lightning. Usually,
I love being the thunder to your lightning, Christian.
Yeah, usually there's a lot of thunder with you and Gabe, and then I would have to be the lightning. But this week we can split it evenly, 50-50. Yeah. You're the thunder, I'm the lightning. So
you should have seen it last week. Honestly, real talk. Before we moved to the commercial, you should have seen the camera work I had to do to fit both me and Gabe. Both? Bro, it was a heavy duty. We were tanking around 600 pounds on that in that studio, man.
Yeah, that was an XL last week. XL shoot.
That was an XL shoot.
Yeah, so we're going back to some more of what people are familiar with this week.
Right.
But anyway, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back on the other side with the Hot 3.
Gabe and I talked about that on the Bluff. We talked about the Maui Invitational roster, and I legitimately thought that it was a troll when I saw that online a few weeks ago. I was like, "There's no way that's real. We're getting trolled right now."
What the
teams that are there?
Yeah, it's pretty unreal. But I think do you think that has to do with NIL opportunities, like as a whole?
What do you mean?
Oh, if you are a foreign player, like there's a ruling that you can't.
Maui is in the United States.
Hawaii is the U.S.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
It's the U.S.
Where did we go last time?
Oh, Dominican.
That's
and
where
then we went to the Bahamas.
That's what Bahamas is supposed to think of.
Dominican was the Bahamas is U.S.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, Bahamas is not U.S. God.
What? All right, Kenny, say something after you drink this astronaut. Yeah. We're up there in space, brother.
What is happening?
It's been a long day.
Tune in to Tigers Untapped with TJ Willis and Trey Lasley every Wednesday at 3 p.m. on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
And it's undeniable how important the Core 4 was to Memphis. The city didn't care about the Grizzlies until the Core 4 came. So that Core 4 team put that team on the map here.
Yep.
Right? Not in national eyes, but put it on the map here, which is what matters.
Yep.
That's what made the Grizzlies become our city's team, right? Like us, that team, that organization became endeared to us through that run.
Yep.
But you had to be there, bro. Like you had to watch that to get that. John Moran and them didn't see that. Nope. like he didn't grow up a Grizzlies fan. I'm fine with the reality. These dudes don't care about that. But we had this inclusion mentality where it's like we want to make ourselves as important as what other teams are doing and what they're doing. Marc Gasol is not who y'all trying to make him out to be, bro. Marc was that dude. Marc was a very good player. He was a very key part of that run, right? But even within that run, he's not the player that people are trying to make him like he is, right? If John and them were playing and they had uniforms on, yeah, you probably could have got them a little longer. They was already dressed and ready to go.
Thank you.
Tune in to The Anthony Sane Show Wednesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. weekly on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel. Let's get to it, man. You ready?
Yep.
A little bit of a weird transition. We're trying out some new things in the new studio. Listen, we haven't had a real chance to discuss this, but we are actually no longer in the Bluff City Media Studios, are we?
We're all online now.
Yep. We're going to take a little bit of a break from the studio, find us a new spot. The place that we had that we're running from before actually sold the building, so we needed to get out. But I'm not unhappy about it. I'm ready to take a little bit of a break from the studio, get home, be able to stay at home right now, and do the
It takes an
virtual thing.
hour and a half of driving out of my Mondays.
How happy are you, right?
I'm a little excited by it.
Yeah. I mean, listen, the studio is like the vibes in the studio. It's a blast. We have a great time. But it's a good 30-minute drive for me. It's taxing, and I'm there 4 nights a week.
Right.
So
Yeah, you're there a lot more, and on Mondays specifically, you're there until like 11:30 most nights. So it's gonna be nice for you for sure.
It'll be nice, man. But dude, let's do this, man. Let's get to the hot 3. Let me bring up my brands real quick. Hold on 1 second. Still trying to get used to this, so y'all give me a break.
It's okay to have a couple kinks.
Yeah, we got a couple of kinks. This is the hot 3.
There you go.
Are you ready?
I'm excited.
Let's go. First topic is the NFL draft. It's coming up soon. When is it, Christian?
Thursday.
How excited are you?
Dude, so I was talking to Anna Ruth about this weekend because she was like, I'm going to a concert on Thursday night, and I was like, great, I'll be watching the draft. I think I have watched every pick of the first round since 2009. Was as far as I could track it back, was 2009. And I'm pretty confident in that. And it might go back a year or two further, but I can almost with 100% certainty, I've watched every pick of every first round since 2009 when I was 11 years old. So I am a draft freak. I start reading draft coverage during college football season, like when very few people are writing about it. I catch every article I can. Right. I love it. It's one of those friend events where we all get together, order pizza, hang out, watch the draft. So I am excited about it. I'm just gonna go for a second.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go for a second, and then we can transition into our next topic. It's an interesting draft because I think it's pretty obvious it's going to be quarterback heavy. Yeah. At the beginning, Caleb Williams is all but assured to go number 1 overall, and then the Commanders are expected to take a quarterback as well at number 2, whether that's Jaden Daniels, Drake May, or the wild card of J.J. McCarthy. There will be a quarterback there at 3. Patriots need a quarterback. Do they trade down? Do the Vikings trade up? Does another team come up to get a quarterback there? Even the Raiders potentially at 13. Do they move up? So it's going to be a quarterback heavy first round bare minimum is going to be 4, and that would be Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, J.J. McCarthy. But also wouldn't be surprised if Bo Nix and Michael Penix go in there. So it could be up to 6 quarterbacks. Very offensive-heavy draft as well. You look at the receivers, Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunze, all very closely ranked on most people's boards. They could all be top 10 picks. I think it's really the deepest offensive line draft that I've seen or I can remember, at least over the last several years. Maybe not some of the top in talent, I guess you could say. I think Joe Alt is the highest rated on most people's board, but you got Olu Fashanu out of Penn State, who's going to be high up there. You've got Troy Fountain now from Washington that's going to be high up there. Talise Fuaga from Oregon State that's going to be up there. Amarius Mims, Tyler Guyton. So the list goes on and on. Jackson Powers Johnson, Graham Barton as interior offensive linemen. So I think I saw something today. It was like a NFL draft hot take or something that was like by the 2026 season, there will be 10 starting offensive linemen between the first 2 rounds or something like that. It's very offensive line heavy. First defense player probably comes off the board around 9 to 11. It's not even mentioning Brock Bowers, who is, been considered one of the most elite tight end prospects of all time. So it should be a lot of fun. I know it's not necessarily the deepest draft as far as defense goes, but receivers super deep in this class. Quarterbacks kind of fall off after those top 6. That's when you get into like Spencer Rattler range. Offensive line is really like 3 or 4 rounds deep of potential starters, both interior and tackles. So I'm obviously excited about it. Can't wait. I know we've talked a lot about the Cowboys' terrible offseason so far, so we'll see what they can do in the draft to maybe alleviate that. Seen some people saying they could trade back later in the first round, pick up maybe a late second or a third round pick. So see what the Cowboys do. But overall, I'm not really focused on my team in the draft. I enjoy it all. What is
your favorite part about the draft? Like, what do you enjoy the most about? Do you like seeing the videos of the live shots of the players getting the phone calls? Like, what do you like the most?
Honestly, for me, it's like the totality of the team building. Like my favorite thing, I think, is looking back after Sunday or after Saturday, right, and I guess going into Sunday and looking at who did everybody get? Like, where were the needs filled? Like, who had the best on paper draft class? Like, who hit every position that they needed to get and could have potential starters at that position. So that's what I like, is seeing like you have these teams with all these holes and how do they attack them in the draft? Like, do they go best player available, or do they take players that fill a need? So to me, it's just everything. It's going back at the end and saying, okay, how did these teams fill those holes and how does it look going into the season?
In your opinion, what's more vital to team success? In which league is the draft more vital to a team's success, NFL or NBA? Because those are the 2 real big drafts that we look at, right?
I think it's NFL, and it's not even close. Because really in the NBA, you're going to get maybe 1 starter a year.
Right.
Maybe. Like if you're outside the lottery, you might not even get a starter. You might just get a borderline rotational guy. But in the NFL, it can completely change a team. Me and Gabe have talked ad nauseum about the Lions from last year and what they did with Jack Campbell and Jahmyr Gibbs and Brian Branch and Sam Laporta, and they completely rebuilt their roster through that draft. So to me, it's NFL, and it's not even close. Obviously, more rounds, more positions to fill, and just overall more depth and more talent in the NFL draft.
Yeah, I love it. Any other thoughts on the NFL draft?
Nope. Let's move it on.
Let's go to the second topic. Let's go to the NBA playoffs. This is one of my favorite times of the year. I love this time of the year with the NCAA tournament moving into the NBA playoffs. I'll be honest with you. I am a massive NBA fan, but I have not had the chance to watch as many games as I would like to this year, especially with the Grizzlies being as bad as they were.
take some out of it.
Yeah, I didn't take a whole lot of time to sit down and watch a bunch of Grizzlies games this year also, just because of my schedule being what it is. But I love the storylines that are coming out of the NBA playoffs so far. Let's do a quick little rundown of the first round and maybe some of the surprises you're seeing in the first round, and even maybe who you think's going to win. You ready to do that?
Let's do it. I got it pulled up in front of me. So let's just go through and we'll both pick who we think is going to win. We'll start with the East. I think this one's pretty easy. Celtics, Heat. Celtics are already up 1-0 in the series.
And they won by I know the Heat made a little bit of a comeback in that game, but they were up by 40, I think, at one point.
Yeah.
But Boston, I think, is the best team in the entire NBA. I think Boston will win that series, running away.
Yeah, I agree.
Even though the Heat have had Boston's the Heat have become kind of a bugaboo for the Boston Celtics. The Heat have always kind of inched their way, kind of limped into the playoffs through the play-in tournament, and then last couple of years
turned it on
and went to the finals. But I don't see it happening this year. I think Boston is too good. They're too talented. I think the addition of Kristaps Porzingis has added a different layer to that team.
Drew
Holiday, yeah. I'm not a big of a Drew Holiday. I know there's a lot of Drew Holiday stands out there, but I'm not one of them. Yeah. I think he's a fine player, but Kristaps to me has totally revolutionized that team.
For sure. Yeah, I got Boston as well. Maybe Miami gets one in Miami, but
they don't have Jimmy though. That's the problem.
Right. Exactly.
So,
kind of a matchup of some of the younger teams in the NBA, Cavs and Magic. I think this is going to be a really fun series. Cavs are up 1-0 right now, but like I said, two young teams. Really, the only marquee superstar of any age, I guess, would be Donovan Mitchell. Other than that, two very young teams. Who do you got?
I don't know, man. Paolo Banchero is that dude, man. You've been talking about Paolo Banchero since he was a sophomore in high school.
NBPA camp, NBPA top 100.
You came back from that camp and you said, "Bro, I saw a kid. His name was Paolo Banchero."
Yeah,
and now he has turned into one of the best stretch bigs in the entire NBA. He's a phenomenal player. I just think Cleveland has too much. Honestly, I think I think Orlando has so much potential and so much fun.
They're so young.
I'm a huge Franz Wagner fan. I think I love his game. I love Paolo Banchero's game. But for me, Cleveland, Darius Garland is that dude. I think Evan Mobley is that dude. Jared Allen is an effective center in the NBA.
I think he had 18 rebounds in game one.
Donovan Mitchell, man.
Yeah. He's so good in the playoffs.
Oh, God. Do you remember that? You remember a few years ago, the Utah versus Denver series?
Oh,
where him and Jamal Murray were going bonkers on each other for
dropping
4
50.
straight games. Yeah, each dropping 50 for 3 straight games.
Yeah, I'm with you. I go Cleveland in that. I think Donovan's too good, and then you add the front court that Cleveland possesses and Darius Garland as well. I think it'll be competitive. I think it'll be maybe 6 or 7, but I think the Magic still need a year or two and maybe another piece. But they're close. They're really close. They're ahead of schedule, no doubt.
You know who I'm hearing that piece could be?
Who?
Klay Thompson.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Because it looks like the Warriors are going to have to get off something. They're going to have to do something, or they're going to be in the wasteland for years.
Right.
And everybody's talking about Klay Thompson being that guy. And I think Klay's got some more time. I think he's got getting out of the pressure cooker of the dynasty that is Golden State. I think he's still got some time left in the East where he could do some damage with Orlando if he were to end up there. But anyway,
shooting pretty much lasts forever.
Yeah.
All right, Knicks and 76ers.
Is a tough one, man, because we're going to talk about this in the third topic. Do you know how much of a fan of Jalen Brunson I am?
I'm too. I'm right there with you.
Dude, I love his game so much. And the addition of OG Anunoby has really done some really good things for the New York Knicks. You saw OG defending Joel Embiid in the post in that first game. The fact that this kid can guard literally 1 through 5 against the reigning MVP of the entire league, to me it shows me I think there's some more. I think New York has more pieces and more tools. The like Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo, Jalen Brunson, who else is Isaiah Hartenstein is a guy who's going to give any big man in the NBA trouble. It all to me comes down to how healthy is Joel Embiid.
Oh,
if he is unhealthy, if he cannot go 100% on that knee, then I think New York rolls them pretty quickly. Yeah. But Philly with Joel is a different beast, man. They're a different beast because I'm also, as much as I love Jalen Brunson, I love Tyrese Maxey. Yeah. Love him.
He had 33 in game 1. Interesting series. I think it'll be a lot of fun. I'm going to go Knicks as well. Probably in a 6 or 7 game series.
Oh, you got him that good. You got him beating him. Okay, wow.
I think it'll be tight. Last one in the East, Bucks Pacers.
Dude, I don't know, man. Like I would have told you before last night that the Pacers were going to roll Milwaukee because there's something off about Milwaukee all year.
Yeah.
And I think we didn't see what we thought we were going to see out of Damian Lillard the entire year. Maybe there was some injury.
No game 1.
Maybe there was some like off the court stuff. I don't know if you saw kind of the Memphis connection to that. Our girl Glorilla got called out by Damian Lillard's ex-wife, calling her basically the other woman.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff. Like Giannis Antetokounmpo gets a coach fired when they were like however many. I mean, they were like 10 games above 500, gets the coach fired, brings in Doc Rivers. I think Doc Rivers is a clown. I think he is a terrible coach. Like he's won a championship. Cool. But I just think he has never had a team that has done anything in the postseason outside of that one Boston year. They always go in with these high expectations and then always lose. And so I was concerned about that for them. And then what does Milwaukee do? They lose Giannis in the first round. They bring Damian back in, and Damian goes bananas, has 35 points in the first half. I don't even think he needed a score in the second half. Like, it was vintage Dame time, right? Yeah. I still think, Tyrese Halliburton played 35 minutes and had 5 shots attempted, not made, attempted in that game. I don't know, man. I don't know. It depends on which team we get. I still think the Pacers will probably win that series because I like Tyrese Halliburton a little bit more than Dame Lillard. But if Dame's doing what he's doing,
it's tough.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to go Pacers in that one. The way that Siakam's playing, the way that Tyrese Halliburton's playing.
Yeah.
Give me them in that one. Moving on to the West, Thunder Pelicans.
Thunder.
Yeah. That one doesn't really need anything else.
I don't know. It was a good game. It was the best game of the last 2 days, though.
Yeah, but still.
That Thunder Pelicans game was fire.
It was.
Without Zion.
I don't think
without
there's
Zion.
Questions. Yeah, without Zion.
We'll move on. We'll move on past this, but I think the Pelicans could potentially give them help because you're looking at a team that is so young and so untested in the Oklahoma City Thunder that I just wonder how are they gonna do, and especially they struggle against bigs, and that's what they have Jonas Valanciunas, and so the Pelicans do. So I still think the Thunder, but I think Pelicans are going to give them a series.
Okay, Kenny, we just got some breaking news, so let's run through these last 3 really quick, and then we're going to change our hot 3 topic to that. So we're adjusting on the fly here. Okay. I'll give it to you on air. So last 3, let's just run through these. Let's pick one. Clippers, Mavs.
Say that again. Sorry.
Clippers, Mavs.
Clippers.
I'm gonna go Mavs in that one. Wolves, Suns.
Wolves.
Same. Nuggets, Lakers. Pretty easy.
Well, I don't know, man. No, just like the Nuggets. Obviously, they're the best team. They're the second best team in the NBA. They're a dynasty. They're awesome.
All right, you ready for the breaking news?
Breaking news. Let's go.
Okay, so George Mason point guard Baraka Okojie has committed to Memphis. Averaged 8 points, 2.8 rebounds, and 2.4 assists last year as a freshman.
Penny is I know for a fact that there were Tiger fans that were like, it's been a week since we've had a commitment.
Yeah.
And today there's been 2. Tyrese Hunter obviously announced earlier. Baraka Okojie announces now. I think Baraka Okojie is a pure developmental prospect. He is a kid who's got 3 years left of eligibility. He played his true freshman season at George Mason.
Yep.
Big kid, a big guard, but it's not a great shooter yet.
Nope.
The one thing about him that I think that people are going to like is when he gets, if and when he gets in the game, he shows a willingness to defend, number one. And number two, he's very secure with the ball. And I think he's got an assist to turnover ratio of 2 to 1 in his freshman year at George Mason, and he's a high usage guy. And so those things are positive, I think, for the Tigers. We talk about the potential of adding a Moussa Cisse to the equation, not being a needle mover. Baraka Okojie is a pure developmental guy that you're saying, man, like, this is the kind of kid that we're going to bring in. There's going to be zero expectations on him, and we are going to develop him into what we think he can possibly be. And I think first and foremost, his shooting has got to get better. He's got to be a better shooter.
Yeah, 25% 3-point shooter last year. Not great at all. I think he was like 47% from the floor.
Right.
But yeah, I think you're exactly right. He's someone that's young, that if you keep him here, they can be here for years. You can develop. He definitely has upside as just an overall scorer. He's a good passer. And obviously, these are all areas that he can improve in, but just as of right now in his game, he's a solid passer, nearly 1.5 steals per game. So as you mentioned, very active on the defensive end, a willingness to defend and get out in transition. So another addition to this backcourt that we've talked so heavily about, and I think it's a solid addition. Not someone that's going to have high expectations, but can be exactly what you need him to be or want him to be.
Effective in spurts, right? Yeah. Like effective in spurts. And the beauty of it is, think about it this way. What is one thing that we talked about with Penny Hardaway that he very clearly said he wanted? He wants continuity on his team.
Yeah.
And so look at the two guards that he's got. Obviously, Tyrese Hunter is just announced, but PJ Haggerty, Baraka Okojie both have 3 years of eligibility left. And here's the crazy part. They've already done their transfer. They can't transfer again without having to sit. They're going to have to be at Memphis for the next 3 years. Right. So that's not a bad look for Memphis, man. Penny Hardaway, it looks like, has been targeting guys that he knows are one guy in PJ Haggerty that can be effective right now, and a guy who could potentially be a prospect for his team in the next couple of years. So Baraka Okojie is a good get, I think, for Memphis. I don't think it's going to be a needle mover at all in terms of this year, but he does what you need him to do.
Right, and you have spots on this roster that you can fill.
You got
with
plenty of
exactly
spots.
That. All right, we're going to wrap it up on that note. Like I said, adjusting on the fly, it happens sometimes, but you got to do what you got to do to get the clip to put it out there, right, Kenny?
Right, you got to do it, man.
All right, so we appreciate you guys for joining us this week. If you're watching on YouTube, you can like, subscribe, and comment there. If you're listening wherever you get your podcast, you can do all the same things there. Head over to bluffcitymedia.co. Check out everything we got going there, from articles, podcasts, videos, and everything else. Appreciate you guys for checking in, and we will see y'all back here next week.
Thank you for listening to On The Bluff. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. Also, like and subscribe to Bluff City Media's YouTube page. Head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co for comprehensive coverage of Memphis sports and how you can become an insider.